Hello everyone, and welcome to Soft Stories. I'm Stratton, and today we are continuing our reading of Arnold Bennett's fascinating little book, How to Live on 24 Hours a Day. I have been really enjoying our reading of this book so far, and I hope that you have been too. There's something about the matter-of-fact way that he goes about explaining how time and life works in a way that I find useful but not particularly presumptive. It's nice. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. And so, without further ado, let's continue our reading with Chapter 5 of How to Live on 24 Hours a Day. Which is entitled Tennis and the Immortal Soul. You get into the morning train with your newspaper, and you calmly and majestically give yourself up to your newspaper. You do not hurry. You know you have at least half an hour of security in front of you. As your glance lingers idly at the advertisements of shipping and of songs on the outer pages, your air is the air of a leisured man, wealthy in time, of a man from some planet where there are 124 hours a day instead of 24. I am an impassioned reader of newspapers. I read 5 English and 2 French dailies, and the newsagents alone know how many weeklies regularly. I am obliged to mention this personal fact lest I should be accused of a prejudice against newspapers when I say that I object to the reading of newspapers in the morning train. Newspapers are produced with rapidity, to be read with rapidity. There is no place in my daily program for newspapers. I read them as I may, in odd moments, but I do read them. The idea of devoting to them 30 or 40 consecutive minutes of wonderful solitude, for nowhere can one more perfectly immerse oneself in oneself than in a compartment full of silent, withdrawn, smoking males, is to me repugnant. I cannot possibly allow you to scatter priceless pearls of time with such oriental lavishness. You are not the Shah of time. Let me respectfully remind you that you have no more time than I have. No newspaper reading in trains. I have already put by about 3/4 of an hour for use. Now you reach your office, and I abandon you there till 6 o'clock. I am aware that you have nominally an hour, often, in reality, an hour and a half, in the midst of the day, less than half of which time is given to eating. But I will leave you all that to spend as you choose. You may read your newspapers then. I meet you again as you emerge from your office. You are pale and tired. At any rate, your wife says that you are pale, and you give her to understand that you are tired. During the journey home, you have been gradually working up the tired feeling. The tired feeling hangs heavy over the mighty suburbs of London like a virtuous and melancholy cloud, particularly in winter. You don't eat immediately on your arrival home, but in about an hour or so you feel as if you could sit up and take a little nourishment. And then you do. Then you smoke seriously, you see friends, you potter, you play cards, you flirt with a book. You note that old age is creeping on, you take a stroll, you caress the piano. By Jove, 11:15. Time to think about getting to bed. You then devote quite 40 minutes to thinking about going to bed. And it is conceivable that you are acquainted with a genuinely good whisky. At last you go to bed, exhausted by the day's work. 6 hours, probably more, have gone since you left the office. Gone like a dream. Gone like magic. Unaccountably gone. That is a fair sample case, but you say, "It's all very well for you to talk. A man is tired. A man must see his friends. He can't always be on the stretch." Just so. But when you arrange to go to the theatre, especially with a pretty woman, what happens? You rush to the suburbs. You spare no toil to make yourself glorious in fine raiment. You rush back to town in another train. You keep yourself on the stretch for 4 hours, if not 5. You take her home. You take yourself home. You don't spend 3/4 of an hour in thinking about going to bed. You go. Friends and fatigue have equally been forgotten, and the evening has seemed so exquisitely long, or perhaps too short. And you do remember the time when you were persuaded to sing in the chorus of the Amateur Operatic Society, and slaved 2 hours every other night for 3 months? Can you deny that when you have something definite to look forward to at eventide, something that is to employ all your energy, the thought of that something gives a glow and a more intense vitality to the whole day? What I suggest is that at 6 o'clock you look facts in the face and admit that you are not tired, because you're not, you know, and that you arrange your evening so that it is not cut in the middle by a meal. By doing so, you will have a clear expanse of at least 3 hours. I do not suggest that you should employ 3 hours every night of your life in using up your mental energy, but I do suggest that you might, for a commencement, employ an hour and a half every other evening in some important and consecutive cultivation of the mind. You will still be left with 3 evenings for friends, bridge, tennis, domestic scenes, odd reading, pipes, gardening, pottering, and prize competitions. You will still have the terrific wealth of 44 hours between 2 p.m. Saturday and 10 a.m. Monday. If you persevere, you will soon want to pass 4 evenings, and perhaps 5, in some sustained endeavour to be genuinely alive. And you will fall out of that habit of muttering to yourself at 11:15 p.m, "Time to be thinking of going to bed." The man who begins to go to bed 40 minutes before he opens his bedroom door is bored. That is to say, he is not living. But remember, at the start, those 90 nocturnal minutes thrice a week must be the most important minutes in the 10,080. They must be sacred, quite as sacred as a dramatic rehearsal or a tennis match. Instead of saying, "Sorry I can't see you, old chap, but I have to run off to the tennis club," you must say, "But I have to work." This, I admit, is intensely difficult to say. Tennis is so much more urgent than the immortal soul. Chapter 6. Remember human nature. I have, incidentally, mentioned the vast expanse of 44 hours between leaving business at 2 p.m. on Saturday and on returning to business at 10 a.m. on Monday. And here I must touch on the point whether the week should consist of 6 days or 7. For many years, in fact until I was approaching 40, my own week consisted of 7 days. I was constantly being informed by older and wiser people that more work, more genuine living, could be got out of 6 days than out of 7. And it is certainly true that now, with 1 day in 7 in which I follow no program and make no effort save what the caprice of the moment dictates, I appreciate intensely the moral value of a weekly rest. Nevertheless, had I my life to arrange over again, I would do again as I have done. Only those who have lived at the full stretch 7 days a week for a long time can appreciate the full beauty of a regular recurring idleness. Moreover, I am aging, and it is a question of age. In cases of abounding youth and exceptional energy and desire for effort, I should say unhesitatingly, keep going, day in and day out. But in the average case, I should say, confine your formal program, super program, I mean, to 6 days a week. If you find yourself wishing to extend it, but only in proportion to your wish, and count the time extra as a windfall, not as regular income, so that you can return to a 6-day program without the sensation of being poorer, of being a backslider. Let us now see where we stand. So far we have marked for saving out of the waste of days half an hour at least on 6 mornings a week, and 1 hour and a half on 3 evenings a week. Total 7 hours and a half a week. I propose to be content with that 7 hours and a half for the present. "What?" you cry. "You pretend to show us how to live, and you only deal with 7 hours and a half out of 186? Are you going to perform a miracle with your 7 hours and a half?" Not to mince the matter, I am, if you will kindly let me. That is to say, I am going to ask you to attempt an experience which, while perfectly natural and explicable, has all the air of a miracle. My contention is that the full use of those 7.5 hours will quicken the whole life of the week, add zest to it, and increase the interest which you feel in even the most banal occupations. You practice physical exercises for a mere 10 minutes, morning and evening, and yet you are not astonished when your physical health and strength are beneficially affected every hour of the day, and your whole physical outlook changed. Why should you be astonished that an average of over an hour a day given to the mind should permanently and completely enliven the whole activity of the mind? More time might assuredly be given to the cultivation of oneself, and in proportion as the time was longer the results would be greater, but I prefer to begin with what looks like a trifling effort. It is not really a trifling effort, as those will discover who have yet to essay it. To clear even 7 hours and a half from the jungle is passably difficult, for some sacrifice has to be made. One may have spent one's time badly, but one did spend it. One did do something with it, however ill-advised that something may have been. To do something else means a change of habits. And habits are the very dickens to change. Further, any change, even a change for the better, is always accompanied by drawbacks and discomforts. If you imagine that you will be able to devote 7 hours and a half a week to serious, continuous effort and still live your old life, you're mistaken. I repeat that some sacrifice and an immense deal of volition will be necessary. And it is because I know the difficulty, it is because I know the almost disastrous effect of failure in such an enterprise, that I earnestly advise a very humble beginning. You must safeguard your self-respect. Self-respect is at the root of all purposefulness, and a failure in an enterprise deliberately planned deals a desperate wound at one's self-respect. Hence I iterate and reiterate. Start quietly, unostentatiously. When you have conscientiously given 7 hours and a half a week to the cultivation of your vitality for 3 months, then you may begin to sing louder and tell yourself what wondrous things you are capable of. Before coming to the method of using the indicated hours, I have one final suggestion to make. That is, as regards the evenings, to allow much more than an hour and a half in which to do the work of an hour and a half. Remember the chance of accidents. Remember human nature. And give yourself, say, from 9 to 11:30 for your task of 90 minutes. That is the end of chapter 6 and the end of our reading for today. Sorry to leave you once again on a cliffhanger, but this book does rather seem like that, doesn't it? It's interesting that it's telling us so little in so many pages. But I sort of agree with the narrator. I have found in my own life that filling up time is much more difficult than just spending time. It's easy to fritter away the hours on one's computer or nowadays one's phone without thinking much about what's happening. In my own life, I've had to take a lot of effort to try and make sure that in my free time after work each day, I am doing something that is not only an enjoyable use of time, but a use of time of which I am proud. It's not an easy thing to do, and goodness knows that I am far from perfect in this regard, in many regards. But I do think that it is quite a worthwhile thing to think about. I'm sure you have those things that bring you joy in your own life as well, things that you always wish that you had more time to do. Well, maybe now is the time. Maybe by simply taking that hour and a half 3 times a week, you can do them. I'm interested to see what our friend Arnold Bennett suggests in his use of these 7.5 extra hours a week. I look forward to finding out with you next time on Soft Stories. But until then, I wish you all the best, and goodbye.